So we are well into springtime when all the green shoots have shot, and we should be seeing some kind of productivity in terms of the creative arts. I think this summer is going to be saturated with news, current affairs, and a football World Cup. And
Is that World Cup going to happen?
Well, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. I'm pretty sure the stakes are so high with football these days as a global brand and TV rights. I think it would take a very brave man to cancel those TV rights. I'm sure a lot of advertising revenue has already been spent. But at the same time, the world is a very, very nervous place to sort of be in general. So who knows? That's a very good point. But one other point is it does rather overshadow wonderful creative moments. Not many brands would compete with their advertisers during a World Cup unless you were a major global brand. And so there's no Glastonbury.
Yes, of course, there's no Glastonbury.
There's no Glastonbury.
Plenty of other festivals, though.
Lots of other wonderful festivals. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I think you're down with the kids and you know about this coming. I was with some young people the other day, and we had access to a TV, and I said, "Come on, put on whatever you want." And one of the lovely young people put on Billie Eilish, and of course, I needed not when I'm in safe territory here. But it was a Billie Eilish listening party. It was in an arena.
Right.
And it was Billie Eilish on a sofa, wandering around a big stage, no band, no nothing, listening to a playback of the album. And there were thousands of fans in the audience that I'm just assuming would have paid an awful lot of money. And I was somewhat gobsmacked because I thought clearly it was a tour. Because when I first saw the beginning of the clip, I thought, oh great, love a bit of Billie, and recognised the tune. And there she was, wandering around the stage, not necessarily singing along. Occasionally she did, but no microphone, holding what looked like a magazine. The general setup was that she was chilling in a lounge area on a sofa, listening to her album.
So she's not talking to the audience about.
I'm sure that in between tracks they did, but that which I saw was simply, and it was a big, big room, had to be thousands and thousands of people who had paid, I'm sure, a reasonable amount of money to hear. Maybe it was in advance, or perhaps they get a sneak listen. But I thought, my God, what's the industry come to? I thought as a person, I felt that was a bit cynical. Unless if I'm wrong and they were kids that were fan club members and got a free entry pass.
Make a wish.
There aren't that many Make-A-Wish.
Who knows? I'm going to research that for another time because I think that's fascinating and quite strange. But I mean, I love the idea of something new and different that I haven't come across. It's very rare that you find something and you go, wow, that's completely different, and people are buying into it. Great. Well,
I was very surprised, and so that was something that I engaged with this week. I know we're very, very guilty of always touching on AI, but I did see a piece about, and I think we touched on this, we keep saying that in the last series, about identifying whether your body of work is in fact AI generated, but some kind of, stamp. I know that any commercial endeavors online, you have to, tag it a hashtag AD to describe it being an advertising clip, advertisement, whatever. So, but I think the actual literary book publishing industry Same as certain books, if they are AI generated, you have to say so, and it has some kind of stamp on the cover or packaging, which actually I don't mind. I think that's reasonably sensible.
I think it absolutely should.
And my heartfelt sort of romantic vision is that people will ultimately, leaving aside big computer-generated films, one of which I saw this week, which I'll talk about, I do think that we, as consumers, will always choose the human as opposed to the machine. Now,
I guess there's going to be areas. So, for example, my son is mad about superhero films, Marvel mostly, but also DC. And those sorts of films, they use so much CGI already, so much green screen. There are so many stunts that either have to be done by doubles or just can't be done. And so they are basically all done in computer graphics. For me, it's like, where is the line between computer graphics and using AI to generate a likeness of that person for you?
and unsurprisingly, that's exactly the right question to ask. And as I touched on, I saw a couple of films, not particularly new. One was a newish film, Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, who is just the most beautiful, and that was just remarkable how much computer generated stuff was going on.
What film was that?
It is called The Fall Guy.
Yes.
Stuntman. I mean, just extraordinary film. I have no idea in terms of percentage terms what was real and what was not. What they probably needed a computer in every single scene. It was.
I mean, this is the thing. I mean, they need computers in every scene of everything these days. I mean, I've done modest budget dramas for the BBC, Channel 4, Sky. Every scene there's a boom microphone in or something. I mean, even on reality TV shows, they're CGIing them out. This requires quite a lot of processing power. It requires some really crazy skills.
Yeah.
And, this is standard practice.
Intricate skills as well, intricate time-consuming skills. So I don't think it's saving any budget.
One of the dramas that I scored was filmed in Belgium, but it was actually set in Britain, and a lot of the signs were in Flemish, and they had to CGI all of these. So you're driving past, a building, or you're walking towards a building. This building's moving. It's not like you can just simply block out the sign. I mean, you have to go in and you have to motion track every single frame. It's incredible what they can do, and it's seamless, and you can't spot it.
We will no doubt talk about AI again and again, and in the course of my duties at work in the last week, a less experienced management individual than I was asking me about AI legally, contractually, and normally I get quite excited about trying to help people define what is going on there in terms of contracts. And I'm not legally trained, but I have, great experience. I quite enjoy taking apart a contract. This particular question was asked of me that could I explain this? I said I could, but my explanation will be obsolete the next day, certainly the next week, because it will have changed. So my message was to a couple of the guys: don't be anxious and nervous about AI clauses, because frankly, the person who wrote them doesn't really know what they're talking about. I mean, there's a level of guys, nobody really knows what's around the corner. So don't be nervous or anxious about AI in the least. I really turned a corner. I was a bit nervous a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, but nowadays, I'll get on with it.
I watched a YouTube video whilst you were on your way over here, and it's by Rick Beato, who we've maybe spoken about before, but probably don't speak about enough, actually. He's an incredibly influential YouTuber, and he has got a lot of experience. He was in a band, he's been a producer, he's got an incredible studio in America. He's an exceedingly nice guy, very generous with his time, and he interviews some of the world's most amazing people. He's grown that channel over the last decade or so. And he did a post yesterday about AI and why he thinks that we are sort of coming towards the end game for AI. And actually it's just his opinion, but he thinks that you can now run an LLM locally on your own computer. And well, he doesn't think it, he knows it because he's done it, proved it, which means that if you can run it locally, what do you need ChatGPT or Anthropic or any of these other ones for, unless you're doing something really super duper?
Can I just ask that perhaps you define that which is LLM?
Yeah, so LLM's large language model, and that's what ChatGPT and Claude and all of those current AIs use. They use a large language model, which means they understand language, they understand the pattern of putting words together, and that's all they understand. So when you ask them a question like, how long should I cook my chicken for? They have no idea what a chicken is. They have no idea what cooking is, but they know that if you put those words in that order, they can contextualize the meaning, and then they can find, by searching the internet generally or their database, that 73 degrees is the optimum cooking temperature to kill all the bacteria. So that's why it's artificial intelligence, because it's not real intelligence, because it doesn't have any understanding. At the moment, I'm personally paying, I think, £15 a month, something like that, to Anthropic for Claude for a pro subscription, and I use it for coding, vibe coding. I use it for
That's not the controversial company that the Pentagon were using.
They're the one that have now fallen out with Trump, because they have refused to allow their models to be used for civilian surveillance and for automatic targeting.
And they have applications that are relevant to your work in the music.
Yeah, I mean, they're general purpose.
Okay.
Their strengths are definitely in computer coding. So if you want to build an app for your iPhone, and I can write an app for an iPhone from scratch. Oh, it's a lot of work and a lot of testing. I can do it in an afternoon in Claude, and it just sorts everything out. And every time there's an error, I just paste the error in and it fixes it. It's brilliant for that. But if I can run that locally, then why do I need to pay a subscription? And Rick Beato's opinion, and I think there's a lot of credibility in it, is that we're reaching a point where we just simply won't need subscriptions. And if we don't have the subscriptions with these companies, how are they going to make any money? All these big data centers they're building, all of the RAM they're buying up, all of the and I don't know if we talked about this before. I don't think we did. This week, I went to buy some hard drives and discovered that they've all doubled in price. And my favorite supplier, which I can name because they've actually stopped now supplying to the public, is Crucial, and they make RAM and they make hard drives, and they have decided to stop supplying the public direct because there's so much demand for big data centers for AI that they can supply them all day long at a much better cost for them, much better business model for them, and they don't need the public. And there isn't enough stuff to go around. There's not enough RAM, which is why all the consumer goods are going to be going up.
And going up and going up.
So AI is really having so many negative effects. I mean, you factor in, we talked about this last week, you factor in cost of RAM, lack of availability, cost of hard drives now, and lack of availability, and the environmental aspects, the people it's going to put out of work. There's lots of good things about it, but there's a whole heap of really bad things.
That's a very interesting point that we should perhaps posit that at the beginning of this session or at the end, that's a fascinating way of viewing AI. I'm fairly laissez-faire about AI, but the impact is, again, changing as quickly as AI is changing, that the impact, can be deemed as very positive. But I think the points you raise make it seem like a very negative place to be. And I wonder, again, I'm a real romantic, whether it outlives its usefulness whilst pricing itself out of, it will always be useful to a certain degree.
Well, also pricing governments out of business, because you can't run a country if you've got no taxes, because most of your workforce is out of work because their work's being done by AI and robots. And the AI and robotics companies aren't going to be able to pay huge amounts of tax because who's paying them? If you want to change the entire structure of society and capitalism, great. I mean, I'm all in, but no one's come up with a better model.
But then everyone has to play by those rules. And unfortunately, that's life, that, there will always be people. But that's very interesting. I wonder if organically we will evolve that, AI isn't as big a deal as everybody thinks.
Look, it's fantastic for running models of different antibiotics, different types of medication, specific targeting for people with specific cancers and particular blood types or whatever it is. I'm not very good at that stuff, but fantastic for that. But it just doesn't really need to be used to work out a recipe for your supper. And it really doesn't need to be used to replace your favorite artist, whatever genre that is.
No, I think we both agree on that.
I think everyone agrees on that.
And I go back to my original position on this, that people will choose real people buy into people. We've said this before. And moving smoothly on to people, I love talking about Eurovision. I happened to see, and I know that you did, the UK's first entry in full, in all its glory, with a video clip. Now, Look Mum No Computer is the artist's name, which means nothing to me, and I'm pleased that you and I are vehemently opposed on this particular subject. But I also thought that the track itself is forgettable, and I'm still scratching my head as to what the powers that be and the powers that BBC are playing at with this one. I actually think then, do they assume that the contest may not happen at all? The World Cup may not happen. The Eurovision has certainly got to be engraved out.
I think Eurovision is definitely one to watch. Will that really happen? I hope it will, but I think it will be very tricky. I think that there are lots of nations who really don't want to share a stage with Israel, and
So
I think Israel needs to take a long, hard look at itself and decide whether they maybe pull out and all have a regime change. But that's a different podcast.
Regime. I'm all about regime change, especially in the Premiership.
So let's talk about
the
song.
The song and the track itself. Now, as this is we are the UK entry to a Europe-wide / Australasia-wide contest. Why you would entitle a track using the German language is quite frankly beyond me. You know how I feel about this, Drew, my dear friend, but you and I are going to be at loggerheads. It's not, you could get away with that shit if it's a really good pop song.
So I think it's brilliant. I think it's I think the whole thing is genius on almost every level. Do I think we're going to win? No. But do I think we're going to come top 10? Definitely. I'm really confident we're going to come top 10. And I mean, top 5, it's not impossible. Depends how strong everyone else is. I think it's a really clever move because it sounds like a Eurovision song. It's fun. It's not taking itself too seriously. And putting it in German, well, having a bit of German in the chorus is just genius. It's a song for Europe.
I concede that it does sound Eurovision / Euro trashy. There's something Euro poppy about it. I listen. The wonderful thing that beauty is very much in the eye of the beholder. It just doesn't. I just don't see. There's nothing outstanding about it in my humble opinion. But as I said, I don't know this fella, and I'm sure he's a really wonderfully nice guy. And
he's got a really big following. I don't know how many.
Has he though? Is it humongous? It's not. I seem to recall it wasn't that huge. Maybe I'm wrong. We should probably do our research before we come on air.
No, let's not. Let's just.
Okay.
I'm just pretending we could do that.
Let me know what we're talking about.
I mean, it gives people something to complain about. So if you want to troll us in the comments and tell us we don't know what we're talking about, I'm very happy with that. Go for it. And I think that he has got a pretty decent following. I don't know how many of those people will be voting for him in Eurovision because they follow him for various different reasons. And it might be not for his Euro poppy song.
Right. So therein lies one of the challenges about having selected him, because he is quite diverse in terms of output. But if yeah, listen,
It comes with more fans than a lot of the previous entries. A lot of whom were put together especially for Eurovision and didn't have any fans at all prior to that. I think the song's really catchy. I think it's really good. I mean,
I'm not going to ask you to sing it, because I don't think that's fair.
I could though.
I couldn't. But you've probably listened to it more times than I have.
I probably haven't.
At the end of the day, I would be the first, if it comes anywhere near the top five, which I seriously doubt that it will, I will eat my words and I will do a forfeit and do whatever I need to do. I'm not going to run around the streets of North London half naked, because that, I think, is an arrestable offence. And I don't
certainly hope so.
I don't think it's very fair, and I'm not sure I'd make it around the first block. But that's another issue. Well, it remains to be seen, but we will revisit Eurovision. I assume that it's out on Spotify. I know it's on YouTube. I haven't even looked at the views. I don't know what's going on, but I admire your faith in this particular choice.
Look, you have to think about the psychology of voting. And there's a lot of tactical voting for your immediate neighbours. There's a lot of voting against Britain or not voting for Britain because we left Europe. I mean, it's a pretty shitty thing to do to the rest of Europe. I'm surprised they even let us take part. And I think we've always slightly struggled with what we're at. If you look at some of the winners we've had, I mean, going back a million years to Bucks Fizz, it was fun. It was just a bit of fun. It was fluff. I think we do that best when we're taking ourselves too seriously and we're trying to do something that's really very worthy or serious or super good. We're judged at a sort of Billboard's top 100, top 10 kind of level. And if we don't meet that, then we failed. Whereas if we're doing something that's just fun and poppy, Eurovision-y, and we're clearly not taking ourselves too seriously and we're just having fun with it, then I think we'll be judged at a similar level to a lot of the other entries, which will be like that.
And I accept that position very much, and that is really just suggesting it's a sort of bit of fun, one-off. Don't take it too seriously, which is one way of looking at it. I just think it's such a huge platform, and if you were to give it more than just half a minute's thought, you could really create. If you put your mind to it, you can create a platform and go on to do bigger and better things. Now, Bucks Fizz arguably have had a 30, 40-year career post Eurovision because they had bloody good pop songs. And yes, you can rewind that. Yes, I did say Bucks Fizz had bloody good pop songs because they did.
They were very well crafted. They were very well made.
Yeah, really well made.
But I don't think this is badly made. I think this is a well-crafted pop song.
Okay, interesting. The fact that it's got a German lyric. I got nothing against Germans, by the way. Some of my best friends are German. I got a couple of friends who are German, and they're very, very good friends. I do find it quite. It's just great, and it's a great debate to have, I must admit. And we will no doubt revisit.
When is it?
Well, it's usually about May time on one of the big holidays. There are 2 bank holiday weekends in May. And I say that because I remember having had time to listen to it one bank holiday weekend. It was...
Well, maybe if anyone's watching this, they can comment and tell us. So that
I really do hope it happens this year, and I hope we can forget the politics and get on with having some fun with it. I begrudgingly really love Eurovision. I
totally love it.
I don't love the BBC and the UK's approach in recent years, as you know, but I still love it. And I think that I should be responsible for everything to do with UK's journey of Eurovision.
Well, maybe we could lobby for that. Maybe. I'm still very much a fan of what we discussed previously, which is the idea of opening the British entry up to a public vote again. We've
absolutely
done it in the past. I don't know what the reasoning was for not doing that. I suspect there will be some good reasons. I don't think these decisions are taken as lightly as perhaps we imply.
I can tell you one of the major reasons is that if you open up a competition to all and sundry, that's an absolute bloody nightmare. If there's no quality control, there's no even, provision who is eligible to enter. Forget the quality of the song. It's everyone and their wife will want a piece of that.
Well, also, it's expensive. And it's a lot cheaper just to sit down in a room.
That's right. The process costs, of course. But anyway, we will certainly come back to that. And talking of potential cancellations of World Cups and music competitions, F1 got off to a very exciting start.
Yeah.
In Melbourne, but that wasn't painless. There were some delays in people and products arriving from various parts of the world, and coming back to Europe via Australia can often be through the Middle East as the second stop off. So I know lots of journeys were interrupted. Lots of people have gone from Melbourne to Shanghai this Sunday, round 2 of the F1.
And when's the Saudi?
Jeddah, April sort of 15.
So that's quite unlikely to happen.
Highly unlikely to happen, which is, absolutely devastating. And
well, also incredibly complex and expensive for them to sort out. What do they do if they take a round out? Do they just forget it?
For all the reasons that we've discussed in terms of when you cancel things, but acutely F1 in terms of commitment to travel, sponsorship, advertising, television rights. I mean, and
the number of people they would employ in those places as well. All of those people are dependent on that work.
Absolutely.
It's a huge knock-on effect on people.
Yeah, because that's not a sporting country per se, really. The quality and quantity of social media in and around F1 is astonishing. If you think the music business is too much to take, trust me, take an hour and look at just F1. And don't go any further than searching F1, but the diversity of social media and the amount is absolutely stunning.
That's really interesting.
And the quality, some of the quality is beyond anything that you will see. So again, I was having this conversation. We are trying to discourage and implement bans on social media, and then you've got the balance that everybody wants to do it, brands on it, and that's the way people are communicating. So it's a really difficult. It's a double-edged sword on many levels. The socials, and I know that we go back to our early days of chatting about what a necessity it is, and so I feel again, fickle and contrary, because I do think young kids spend too much time on it, but at the same time we're encouraging people to float their boat on it, as it were.
Good. So that was episode 4 of Riding the Showbiz Wave, and should we do episode 5 next week?
Episode 5, and I'd like to touch on, there's been quite a bit of buzz on management, talent management, artist management within the industry, and we may have touched on it before, but I do think it's worth repeating about difference between an agent and a manager, and at what stage you get a manager, how things are changing in that world, especially for young creative people, talented people who are thinking, well, how do I get that breakthrough? I always think it's worth having a chat about that.
I think that's really sensible. Let's do that next week.